Welcome everyone to the final Silicon Slopes Town Hall of the week. We do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. So make sure you tune into those. As you can see on the screen, we have launched something in partnership with Cotopaxi and Slope Serves to raise money for all the efforts that Slope Serves is doing. So this is the URL. We have the CEO of Cotopaxi on the town hall with us. So I'm going to have him go into more detail on this, but we are launching a One Utah t-shirt to raise funds. All funds will go to slopeserves.com, and all slopeserves.com funds will go to combating the impact that we're all feeling around COVID-19. I usually have a decent amount of an open here, but it doesn't make a lot of sense when you have the lieutenant governor on the town hall, and there's an announcement being made currently. Governor Herbert's doing a press conference right now, and we have Lieutenant Governor Cox here to talk about what's being announced today. Lieutenant Governor, can you give us an update?
I can, Clint, and thank you. And I would encourage anybody, please don't tweet anything out about this. The governor is going live with this press conference momentarily, and I don't want to step on that. So please, until that's out and done, and we're through with that, please keep this confidential. That should be happening any minute, though. The governor has been working very closely with members of legislative leadership. I see Speaker Wilson is on the line as well, and I would love him to weigh in on this after I'm done. Make sure I don't misrepresent anything. He's been in all those negotiations and planning and figuring this out. It's all moving very quickly. Let me back up a little bit. As you all know, and you were all instrumental, we released earlier this week the Utah Leads Together plan. This is our Utah's plan for a healthy for health and economic recovery. The two components of that, the health component and the economic recovery component. In that, it was very clear that we are in the urgent phase of this right now, and the only way to get out of the urgent phase is to slow the spread of the coronavirus and make sure that we do not overwhelm our healthcare system. To that end, early on, we had adopted some social distancing measures, physical distancing measures that included the limit on mass gatherings, included encouragement to work from home, included the suspension of school activities, and there is some good news as we look at the numbers over this week. The rate of transmission per test has remained steady at about 5%. So for every 100 tests we do, we get 5 positives and 95 negatives, and that has remained true. So that's good news for us. We have expanded testing throughout this week. Yesterday was our biggest test day yet, and we expect to have more positives that comes in, and we saw that today. I think north of 70, between 70 and 80 positives, and so we're yesterday I think we did 2,200 tests that will show up today, because there is that 24-hour lag in testing, and we have test capacity for 2,600. That will be going up to about 3,500 by the end of the week, or at the beginning of next week. So that's the good news. However, I do believe that we need to take that next step when it comes to social distancing, and so with that, I want to share with you what the governor is about to announce. So this is a directive to the state of Utah, and I'll read this first. I just want to read this intro, and then I can talk about some of the things that are in there. The governor's coronavirus directive for Utah: stay safe, stay home. I would like to thank all Utahns who are already doing their part to slow the spread of COVID-19. These efforts are making an impact for us to do more. I expect all Utah residents and businesses to follow these directives. They are necessary to keep Utah residents safe during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. They will certainly result in disruptions to our lives, and that cannot be avoided. Those disruptions are a critical part of keeping ourselves safe. Following these directives now will avoid greater hardship later. These directives establish minimum statewide standards in consultation with the local authorities may impose more stringent directives and orders to address unique situations in different areas of Utah. These directives are not to be confused with the shelter-in-place order. The following directives are in place until 11:59 p.m. on April 13th, 2020. So these are for 2 weeks. Now, basically what the governor does here, this is what I would say is just it's a shelter in place order, but it's maybe just right up against what that would be. These again are directives that encouraging people to avoid contact. So there's a section here for individuals. For example, all individuals, the following directives for individuals are effective immediately. All individuals stay at home as much as possible, work from home whenever possible, encourage socializing by phone and video chats, self-quarantine for 14 days after traveling and being exposed to an individual presenting symptoms of illness consistent with COVID-19. Engage in appropriate social distancing. You know what those are. Follow strict hygiene. You know what those are. High-risk individuals, those over the age of 60 or those with serious underlying medical conditions, should limit travel to only essential travel, including to perform work if you cannot telework. Limit visiting friends or family without urgent need. Limit physical interactions with other high-risk individuals, except for members of your own household or residence. Limit recreational travel. Limit attending gatherings of any number of people outside your household or residence. Do not visit hospitals, nursing home, or other care facilities. There's guidance here on children as well, avoiding attending school outside the home, of course, avoiding in-person play dates or similar activities, avoiding playground equipment. Their food directives, we've gone over that. Time spent outside, very similar to what we've seen in other orders. Maintain distance of 6 feet. Exercise outside while maintaining 6-foot distance from another person without touching common areas. Do not congregate around trailheads and other outdoor spaces. Do not travel to or participate in activities in any of the following locations: places of public amusement or public activity, public swimming pools, gyms, or fitness centers. And then there's a section, we won't go through everything, but I will encourage you, we'll get this out to you, encourage you to look at this section on outdoor recreation and travel. Now, the section on businesses, these go into effect effective on March 30th. And there are detailed instructions here for all businesses to maintain social distancing and to make it as safe as possible for employees. And so with that, Clint, I think that covers it. What I do want to say is this: Utah has actually been really good at this. We have followed what has been asked better than just about any state. And we will continue to do that. There will be, like we saw in Summit County, where they had a very high count, and they have issued a stay-at-home order there. There will be some additional guidelines that will come out of Salt Lake County. That my understanding, and Representative or Speaker Wilson can talk more to this about some specifics around certain activities like salons and those types of employment where people are in very close proximity to each other. So we recognize that there are differences throughout the state, right? There are some places that have not been impacted yet, but this is basically setting a standard for the state, and we truly believe that if people will follow these directives from the governor, that we'll be able to prevent the spread of this and prevent it from overwhelming our healthcare system. And maybe I could turn it to the speaker to supplement what I've shared, as he's been actually in those negotiations.
Yeah, Speaker Wilson, can you speak to this?
Yeah, just to get me a level set, Lieutenant Governor, it's good to be with you. Clint, what would you like me to focus my comments on?
Well, I think I have a couple of questions for both you, Speaker, and Lieutenant Governor Cox on this. There seems to be some confusion. You probably saw the Summit County Sheriff put out, like, we didn't issue a shelter in place. It's actually a stay at home. I don't think anyone knows the difference between these two terms. And now this is like kind of a stay at home, but not an entirely stay at home. Can you just, I think a lot of people are just like, what does all of this mean?
I'll take a crack at it, and then we'll let the Lieutenant Governor clarify if he'd like. So I think that it's abundantly clear to all of us that the more intensely we focus our abilities on trying to prevent the spread of this over the next 2 weeks, the quicker we're able to end this, and the more people will be healthy at the end of it as well. And so what the governor's doing right now, Spencer, I think, the Lieutenant Governor has outlined really effectively. And but I think there I know there's a big difference between a shelter in place order and what the governor's doing right now. And what the governor's doing right now is he's saying, hey, listen, folks, we've done a terrific job of reducing the spread of this, but there's a few more things we need to do. And so here's what I'm directing the state to do for the next couple of weeks. We're going to ask you to stop doing non-essential travel, including spring break. The Wilson family was planning on heading out of town for spring break. We're going to stick around now. And we are, at this point, the one probably big change and disruption to the business community that will be noticeable is the closure of non-medical personal care services until this ends. That includes hair salons, nail salons, spas, gyms, those types of things. So if any of you need your massage, you better get it done before the end of business tomorrow. And I don't want to get out too far in front of our mayors, but I think you're going to see some additional protocols put in place at our airports, in particular the Salt Lake International Airport. Not closing the airport, that's not going to happen, but when people roll into town, they're going to be asked to quarantine for 14 days. And really, anyone that's coming into the state, including across our borders on the roads, will be asked to do that. And so those types of directives are part of what the governor's doing right now. And I'm sure, Clint, you'll get out the document to everyone that's on the call.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me just focus on a couple of additional things that are really important for us to be vigilant around right now. The governor's going to be very prescriptive, or is being, I just got word he started just now, around interactions with high-risk populations, and being more prescriptive around no physical interaction with high-risk groups and others over the next 2 weeks. No visits to hospitals, nursing homes, and other residential care facilities. That's been done to some extent on a voluntary basis, but the governor's directing that is the case across the state. No visiting friends and family members that are in these high-risk populations as well. And so let me just, if I can, spin to the last piece, which is the business piece, which most of us, I'm at my office right now. It's been amazing to watch how the business community has risen to the occasion and changed our practices across the state. But the governor's asking us to do even more. And so for us to slow the spread of this, he's asking for more vigilance over the midterm, short-term and midterm, including enhanced social distancing in offices, asking people to work in shifts, if at all possible, if they have to be in their offices. And there's specific language saying that immediately, any business that can have people telework should be doing that. Now, a lot of people have already made that decision, but this is being even a little bit more explicit and a little bit more urgency around that expectation of all businesses in the state. So a shelter in place order would actually close a lot of businesses. This is saying, no, you're not going to have to close, but everybody that can work from home should be working from home. And like in my business, what I'm doing here is those that I have to have here, there's a small group, I am moving them to different parts of the building. So they're not even close to each other anymore. And I've got room now because no one else is here in my office building. So that's working pretty well. So anyway, those are some of the things.
Can I ask, or maybe this is a question for you, Lieutenant Governor, how do we enforce this? How will the state enforce what's being declared here?
So with existing orders, the public health officers can enforce those. But look, Clint, even in California, you can't enforce all of this stuff, right? That we could talk about enforcement all day and it doesn't matter. What matters is people have to do this, and this is really serious. And I think the speaker would agree with that. While whether they have, we can empower every police officer to go arrest anyone that is in a line closer than 6 feet apart. But that's not, it's just not practical. And so we need your help. And again, this is why the governor's doing this. This is why the legislative leadership, everyone is involved in this. We really have to make people understand how serious this is. And again, the only way to get on the other side of this is to do this now. For every week, we don't do these things, that this directive, that could add another month some of the modeling that we're looking at to how long this lasts. So that really is it. We just have to do better as a society. We do, and we think Utah can do that better than anywhere else.
Well, this is what's interesting, Spencer. And as you just mentioned, like shelter in place, stay at home orders, what the governor is doing today, which is kind of like, close to a stay at home order, but not quite. As you mentioned, like California has a stay at home. How do you enforce this stuff? You know what I mean? The bigger question is like, how do we all rally together to do it? You know what I mean? As Utahns and as a community, because all of these different orders, I'm not sure actually, although, I think, probably the biggest reason to do this declaration today is to let people know how serious this is, right? More than, because I'm not entirely sure how different it is, other than we're closing salons and spas and things like that. Because I just think like from a state perspective, anything we can do to communicate very, very clearly, and we're all in to help. And I know you're doing a great job here on like, no matter what order is given, enforcement, unless we have the National Guard roaming the streets, is almost impossible regardless, right? And so I wonder if there's a way to communicate as a state and communicate through organizations like Silicon Slopes and others and all these communities, that make up Utah, to actually tell them like how critical this is, because these orders are not, they're just pieces of paper, really, right? Really?
Yeah, and Speaker Wilson, I'd love to have you chime in. This was part of the discussion that went back and forth, right? There's something psychological about being told, there's a whole group of people that the minute you say, hey, you can't do this, they're going to do it, right?
Right.
We're trying to use that positive message as, hey, we all are in this together, and if we do this together, we're gonna be much better off. And but also very strict and serious language in here. And I think when we send this out, you'll be able to read all of that and see that this is, again, very, very serious language. It's a directive from the governor to the citizens of the state of Utah. And that what you're saying is, we're trying to amplify that message. That's exactly why we're doing this today, is to get this out to everyone, because there are people that aren't taking this as seriously as they need to. And you know who they are. We see it all the time. And this is the next step to get them to take it more seriously.
Well, Lieutenant Governor and Speaker Wilson, I appreciate your leadership here. Anything we can do to get even one more person off of, to practice social distancing and stay home who can, we need to do. And the travel restrictions, that actually is quite significant in this directive, in this order, compared to what we were doing. But yeah, it's an interesting balancing act, and there's so many people who are sending questions, and in this chat as we're doing this town hall, Lieutenant Governor and Speaker Wilson, around like how do we prevent, how do you balance it? And I know this has been the whole negotiations for the two of you, and with Governor Herbert and President Adams. How do you balance keeping the economy going versus keeping social distancing? And we had the president of the Utah Restaurant Association on earlier today. The restaurants in our community have already lost 25,000 jobs, over $175 million in revenue. Then that's just since like March 22nd, right? Because of COVID-19. And so there's this fascinating really conundrum on how to best balance these two approaches. Speaker Wilson, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, Clint, I think it's an interesting question. Let me just point out a couple of things to clarify. There are some significant and incremental changes in this directive than from where we were before 4 o'clock today. And let me give you just a few specifics. This isn't all of them, but closing personal care businesses across the state for a few weeks is a big step. And that is new, and it will make a difference. There's much more specific language in this around non-essential travel. There's very prescriptive language around the ceasing to have social interactions with extended family and friends for the next 2 weeks. We haven't been that explicit about that. Again, there's some language about the airport, everything from the expectation that people that come into our airports will self-quarantine, to also that people will not be allowed in the terminals other than those that traveling in and out with tickets. And so you see things like that. I don't know if the lieutenant governor talked about this or not, but starting at midnight on on Saturday, state parks will remain open, but only to those residents of the counties that the state parks exist in. So up here in Davis County, Antelope Island is a state park. The only people that'll be on Antelope Island are those from Davis County, for example. And there's additional restrictions. So this, and really where this all kind of came from was we've had tremendous success with people within Utah having this really sort of community spirit and can-do attitude, but we recognized there were some things that could be better. And so we had two choices. Do we put the force of law and the force of government and lock people down, or do we say, you know what, why don't we all do these additional things together and we'll make this work better? And that was a decision that Governor Herbert and other leaders across the state, including a number of our mayors, decided was a better approach. And the interesting thing for me is we get to basically the same place, but we do it in a way where we're telling people we need you to step in and help us out with this. And there is no way that government in this state can enforce every little rule that you could ever think of to make something like this work. What we really need to do is explain the principles and the objectives and trust the people of Utah to make the best decisions they can. And I think we've seen over the last couple of weeks, with a few interesting exceptions, as we're powering through the learning curve, people are doing a good job of managing this. So that's the idea here. I will say the governor, I'm speaking a little bit for the executive branch now, which is risky. We've got one of those on here with us, but they're going to be, and I don't want to leak this out to Lieutenant Governor, but my expectation or my understanding is the expectation is starting on Monday, the governor personally will be leading some direct communication every day about the status of this effort that people can tune in and watch. Lieutenant Governor, is that still your understanding?
That's correct, yes.
So, Lieutenant Governor, I have a question for you around like the balancing this economic challenge with, obviously, these two things are interrelated. The sooner COVID-19 goes away, the sooner the economy can come roaring back. How you balance that? And I also just have a question for you around how our community can spread this message, you know what I mean? So it feels as though everyone in the state is unified around what we're trying to accomplish here. And we don't get lost in the weeds around like what a stay-at-home order is versus a shelter in place versus, all these different things. If there's advice you would have for us, because you're doing an incredible job of communicating to the community with your fireside chats and things like that. If there are ways that we could amplify what you're saying and the directives that you're saying so that it's clear and concise and everyone's on the same page, we'd love to hear them.
Well, I do worry, as the speaker said, that we get caught up in kind of the nomenclature or the, if we call it the right thing, that will solve the problem, and it's not true. And so I would encourage people to not get caught up in what we call it or exactly what that is, but to understand the spirit of what it is and what we're trying to accomplish here. For the people that demand a shelter in place order, great, shelter in place. There's a whole bunch of other people that are saying, what are we doing? We're going way too far on this, and we don't believe that at all. But this is a huge step, and anything we can do to amplify this and to get it out there is going to save lives, and it's going to help our economy. And I think that's the message that we just have to keep underlining. Look, if you really want your business to continue to stay open, then you better be keeping people apart from each other as much as you possibly can. One of the problems with the shelter in place order, and I don't think people really look, a lot of people have missed what those are. There's all these exemptions for essential businesses, right? And every business tries to become an essential business during those types of things. So there are millions of people still going to work under those shelter in place orders. What we're trying to do here is to get all of our businesses to adopt the directives that the governor has put out, so we can prevent the spread and keep them doing business. There are ways to do that, and some you just can't, and that's where dine in is just, unfortunately, we know we can't do that, because you end up with people who are different than you in a close space for a long time, and that's how this spreads. And so we just, again, you guys are doing a tremendous job. By the way, I think it's important to talk about how we get out of this, because we can't social distance forever. We just can't. And you guys are playing a big role in that. And that is, we have to significantly increase testing and contact tracing so that we can find out who has this disease. And that's the thing about these 2 weeks that are so important. We'll find out more people that have it. We can test more of them as we ramp up testing. And then we can start surgically having people isolate who have tested positive, and everybody that's come in direct contact with them. And that's how we get out of this and get our economy back on track.
I want to go to, and this will be interesting, Speaker and Lieutenant Governor, for you to hear. I want to go to Qualtrics CEO Ryan Smith, who has some data. He's been working with a lot of different companies and using Qualtrics to gather data on what this has been like for employees and employers. Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you if you're still on here.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Clint?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Sweet. So first of all, Speaker and Lieutenant Governor, I mean, that's hard news to bear, but I think the more clarity that we see here, the better it's going to be. I mean, I'm watching the chat channel blow up here a little bit, and I think there's a lot of interpretation here, which I don't envy the spot you're in. But I will tell you from my standpoint, and I think I speak for a lot of the leaders in the community who are running companies, just being able to chime in and have communication is unbelievable. And I know that we are ahead of most states just with the way that we're coming together. I was on the phone with 12 different CEOs yesterday from all over, and no one has something like this. And so thank you for participating, Clint, for doing it. I know we all appreciate it. So look, 2 weeks ago, we launched some COVID solutions at Qualtrics. We kind of gave them out for free. We have over 12,000 organizations that are pulsing their employees to understand what they're going through. And it's fluid. It's changing frequently. We just wrote something up that'll come out in the Wall Street Journal next week. And here's what we're seeing. First of all, the anxiety and stress from anyone working home is skyrocketing. And, you know, I think that was different than probably what we saw a couple weeks ago from, you know, my big concerns from what we're seeing here is a massive, massive mental health situation coming on. And there's a couple things employers can do that are directly correlated with relieving stress and anxiety. And in reality, I think our people can handle change. They can't handle uncertainty. So as we're thinking about message, not only from what the government should do, is uncertainty is what causes this anxiety. And so the first is the amount of employers that are still not reaching out to their people on a frequent basis and asking them just simply, are they okay? It's almost unacceptable at some level, but that is changing constantly. And it's really simple. Any people leader, anyone, the communication of just asking, are they okay, is really what we're seeing sets people apart. And it's actually the responsible thing to do. The second is trying to figure out how to communicate on a daily, if not weekly, whatever it's going to be. Communication is what is relieving the stress and anxiety. And we don't have any data showing over 12,000 organizations that people are over communicating, which is kind of interesting as you think through that. So if you think you're communicating a lot, that's probably about the time you should be turning it up 20%. And then lastly, and one of the things that we're seeing is the social isolation's a real thing. Whether it's virtual happy hours, I just got off one here, playing games with teams, anything you can do to make sure that there's some sort of break in this social isolation, we all need it. And so those are the three main points that we're seeing from the data. It's changing, but that's across hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And I mean, it's pretty predictable if you look at it, but you know, there's simple measures you can take to try to avoid a lot of what we're going through.
Yeah, and I would encourage every CEO and executive and leader watching this to use that survey. You can just go to, is it qualtrics.com?
Here to help.
Here to help. Real quick, Ryan, I want to go to David Smith here in a second to talk about this Slope Serves shirt we're launching today, and the kind of the initiative to raise some more money for this Slope Serves initiative. But you're doing something actually quite fascinating around food and helping local restaurants that I'd love if you could talk about for a bit.
Oh, well, I think we have a lot of folks that cater and have catered for our organization, and they're really part of the fabric of our employee experience. And one of the things that we said is, hey, we're just going to do a bunch of meals, even though they aren't catering necessarily. And so we started, I just personally started with 50 meals from these restaurants a night, and we're dropping them off. And I think the one thing that I'm seeing is I'm blown away with our community and how people are stepping up to give right now. I think in times like this, you either see the best and worst in people, and I am so absolutely impressed with how giving and how philanthropic people are becoming. And I think that all sets the stage with all the leaders in this community. But it's becoming viral. I saw someone yesterday have a food truck come through and stop at everyone's houses in their neighborhood. And not everyone can do that. But we were up at Primary Children's last night, and they were talking about how many people are giving the first responders and the first line of defense food and dropping, food off. And I just thought, wow, I'm so proud to be a part of a community that's happening. So, paying it forward really helps right now in every way that you can. And even if it's just doing something social to get people out of isolation.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, Davis, I'm going to come to you here in a second, but I want to be clear about the devastating economic hit that local restaurant owners are taking right now. As I mentioned, we had Melva, who runs the Utah Restaurant Association, on this. I guess you call it a program. I don't know what we're calling this thing. We're like the public broadcasting corporation for Utah right now. But we had her on earlier today. And she says $173 million in revenue has been lost by Utah restaurants. And that's up to the 22nd. So we've been in this for 5 weeks? In 5 weeks, $173 million in revenue has been lost by Utah restaurants. 25,000 jobs have been lost in the food and beverage industry over the past 5 weeks. She was saying that it is likely that 40,000 jobs will be lost by the end of next week. 30% of all, or 37% of all unemployment claims came from the restaurant industry. This is devastating for local restaurants. If you think of 40,000 jobs lost, and you think about the fact that there's only 3 million people in the state of Utah, 40,000 is a huge, huge number. And anything we can do to support these local restaurants as well as other small businesses, we have to do. And with that, I want to go to Davis to talk about one thing we are doing and one thing we're announcing today, which is this One Utah shirt, which Drew is going to put up on the screen here. Davis, take it away.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks, Clint. We have an amazing community here, and I really think that a lot of that is thanks to Clint and the work that he's done in building a phenomenal community. So thanks to him and his team. Thank you also to Speaker Wilson and Lieutenant Governor Cox and all of our government leaders that have been so involved in these discussions and been willing to listen and communicate to us over the last few weeks. As I kind of introduced this shirt, first of all, I want to say, so 3 weeks ago, I was actually with 6 other entrepreneurs in the Amazon jungle. We were doing this survival trip. We were hacking our way through the jungle with machetes, sleeping in hammocks in this jungle. Jeremy Andrus was one of this group. We caught a crocodile and ate it, but at night it was terrifying. There were these jaguars that were roaring all night long in the distance. And we had these fires and candles set up around our camp to keep these jaguars away. And what really made it bearable was the fact that we were all together. If I would have been on my own, I don't think I could have made it mentally. But the fact that we had Jeremy Andrus, this tough guy, if anyone's ever run up a mountain with him or anything, you'll know. But It was the fact that we were all together that made it a bearable experience. And similarly in this community that we have, it's what makes this community in Utah special. Like many of you, I've been connecting with CEOs around the country the last couple of weeks, asking about what they're doing, how they're responding, what they're seeing with their business. And one thing that's become clear is that no one else has what we have. And Ryan Smith mentioned the same thing. And so about a week and a half ago on this same town hall, we had an announcement that we were together going to raise $5 million for Slope Serves. Cotopaxi is a small business, right? We don't have the resources of in these unicorn companies. We've been deeply impacted, like many of you, by this crisis. At the same time, we believed that we had a responsibility to try to help our community. And so with the nudge of a friend, Michael Park over at Ivory Homes, and talking with my team, we came up with this idea of creating a shirt using the hashtag #OneUtah, which is the hashtag that Lieutenant Governor Cox and Gavin Christensen and a bunch of others have been using. We love the message of unifying together, of positivity, of being all in this together. And so we created the shirt where 100% of the proceeds are going to support this goal that we have to raise $5 million with Slope Serves to help our community get through this crisis. It's our hope that people, individuals, small businesses, big businesses will buy the shirt. Our community needs it. This is a perfect way for us to rally together as a community. I would challenge you all to get these shirts, to wear them, to post pictures on social media about them. Use the hashtag #OneUtah. If you have a big company, you can send us an Excel file with everyone's addresses. We'll deliver them to people's homes because we know so many of you are working from home. We want to help get the word out that we're unified together. We're going to be able to get through this together. So let's join together and bring our state together during this unique time.
So we'll be sending out the link, and the link's right there on the screen for those, who are watching live here or rewatching it. We'll send that out. We'll promote this heavily. There'll be a section on slopeserves.com promoting this as well. Davis, I can't thank you and Cotopaxi enough for making this happen. This is absolutely incredible. I love the design of the shirt. Cotopaxi's amazing at this. And I love it. I love everything you're doing, and your leadership here is unbelievable. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Clint.
Now I want to go to an issue that, we talked about a little bit on a live earlier today that I want to go a little bit deeper on is mental health, and also talking with IHC around the community health and what IHC is seeing. So Marissa Henn, I want to turn some time over to Marissa to talk about, how IHC is looking at things. Do we have Marissa on, Drew?
We do. She's there. We just can't hear you, Marissa.
We need you to turn on your mic, Marissa, if you can. Marissa, we'll come back to you in just a moment. I'm going to go now to Teresa Foxley from EDC Utah. She's the CEO of EDC Utah. I want to talk about her efforts. And Jeremy Andrus is on this call. He had to pop off. Jeremy is heading up our economic response committee from the Silicon Slopes perspective. Jeremy has told me to let everyone know that a survey is coming from Silicon Slopes that's going to be critical for everyone to take, so we can get a really, really good idea and a clear picture of what's happening within our community. So Teresa, let me send this to you.
Clint, hey, thanks so much for having me back on. It's great to be with you guys again. And really, I'm here to answer any questions that you guys might have. We talked about earlier this week when we did our deep dive protecting the hive. So happy to see that this stay home, stay safe directive is out in our community, hoping that this helps to continue to flatten the curve so that we can all stay safe. Happy to report that we continue to get great feedback and responses to the survey that we've been putting out. We'll probably close that on Friday, and would love to be able to coordinate and share the results that we have on our business impact survey with you. And we'll be working closely with the economic task force to put into place state programs that can help wrap around with some of the federal stimulus that's finally been signed by the president today. So what questions can I answer for you, Clint?
Well, we'll have people submit questions here, and I would encourage everyone to watch the live I did with Teresa as well. That goes deep on what the Economic Task Force is doing and what EDC Utah is doing as well. So thanks for being on here. We'll bring you back in here, Teresa, with some questions. But for now, I want to see if Marissa's mic is working.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, finally. Okay. So sorry about that. So amateur. Well, first of all, just want to thank you so much for having me on and the chance to talk a little bit about mental health, which I feel like you've already given so many great examples of self-care tips. But, suffice it to say, here we are on Friday, and boy, have we ever been reminded of what an emotional roller coaster this can be. I feel like the earthquake is the best metaphor here for just, the ground shaking beneath our feet. So at Intermountain, where I oversee our community mental well-being, we've been really collaborating with state partners, with uni, with other health systems to say, what can we do? And so a lot is happening to go into system response, to go into surveillance, to ensure that an area like suicide prevention, where we've made such progress as a state, that we don't see ourselves slip back in terms of the progress made. I wanted to just remind people of some really key things to remember as we go home this weekend and interact with our families and communities, and then just kind of make a quick shout out for people who may be acutely affected. So just some reminders here on Friday. It's really common to feel very different emotions at this time. There's not one way to be processing what's happening to us physically, emotionally, and psychologically. It's just important that we remind people to be talking with those that they trust. It's also important to remind people that things will get better. Things will get back to normal, and the world is not collapsing. I mean, I think as a general principle, remember, the media and others are trying to drive a lot of attention and traffic, and we feel the real pain of it, but also we need to remember that it's not a time to kind of go catastrophic, if you will. It's also important to remember that you've overcome challenges before. So telling your kids, telling your neighbors, people through your ecclesiastical duties, this is another challenge. We can get through this. It may seem unprecedented, which it is, but we need to use the same coping skills that we use in all challenges to navigate. And then another last tip, just as a general principle, is just focus on today. Think way less about the next 2 to 3 days in your own personal life, in your relationships. Just focus on today and really work in a 1 to 2 day format as opposed to the weeks and months ahead. I realize that's not always a luxury that business leaders can have, but in our personal lives, if we can remember to stay present, that's really important. Given the challenges and the progress Utah has made, especially in suicide prevention, I want to take just one more minute to talk about that important topic. This can be a very vulnerable time for people who are already struggling with issues of mental health, with issues of loss. And so one of the things to remember is that while most of us will be able to cope and kind of find that new normal, we want to be on the lookout for other people we work with or members of our family or community who may be sort of acutely struggling and who may need additional support. Because the truth is, suicide risk may be heightened during this time. We don't have reason to believe that based on the surveillance data we have here in Utah, but we need to be aware. And so just remember, keeping in mind the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, and remembering that if you're worried about someone, you're just not sure what to say or do, or they themselves want to reach out, that's a phenomenal resource. It's staffed locally here by uni, by trained counselors, and that's just a really important one to keep in mind. The other, this may seem like an unusual thing to bring up, but I submitted and there was an op-ed in the Deseret News that was published yesterday, talking about the issue of guns. Here in Utah, Intermountain Healthcare has been working really closely with gun owners on the issue of suicide prevention. And the reason is because while firearms are a big part of our heritage, they're also a really key driver of our high suicide rate. And so in working with those gun owners, something that they have reminded us that I reiterated in this op-ed yesterday is now is not really a great time to be becoming a first-time gun owner because of a lot of the risks associated with combining social isolation and stress with access to firearms.
And that's not something that I'm just telling you as a health professional. It's really something coming from our gun community. So check out the op-ed if you want more tips on how to keep people safe through mechanisms other than purchasing guns. And yeah, just continue to take care of each other in the way that we've been discussing. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing, setting an example for our state of how to promote not only economic and social well-being, but also positive mental health. Thanks.
Marissa, thank you so much. We're going to be talking about mental health throughout this whole thing. I'm sure we'll have you on some lives and back on these town halls as well. That was incredible information. Thank you so much. A lot of the questions we're receiving on this chat, and we've been receiving inbound, my text, my email, and through the Silicon Slopes organization is around the stimulus bill that was just passed. And the economic impact of that's a $2 trillion bill. We had Senator Mitt Romney lined up to come on here. We went 45 minutes. He's no longer able to be on here. He'll be on here Monday, but we have Matt Waldrop, Mitt Romney's chief of staff, with us to give us, and that's probably better anyways, Matt. So give us the lowdown on the stimulus bill.
I'll unmute myself. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you out in the woods. You're looking great.
Yeah, I couldn't pass up on the opportunity to walk through the woods with my kids while listening to this. So we fortunately live backed up to some. A couple of things to pass along that are of importance. One, this is a massive, massive bill, not just in the spending, but in the fact that it's nearly 1,000 pages. And so there are problems with it that we recognized ahead of time. Where compromise was needed to get the bill passed. But there are also some small problems that we've been able to identify since its passing. And nonetheless, it is good that it has gone through. It passed in the Senate 96-0. And one thing, so there's going to be a period where everyone's trying to understand what the heck it means for them. So what we have set up, which is more important than anything I will say here, which is a website that anyone can go to, but it's focused specifically on Utah, and it's romney.senate.gov/small-biz, B-I-Z, help. Small biz help. You can also just go to romney.senate.gov and you'll see it linked to there. So that is a site that we have built specifically to answer questions relating to the stimulus bill. Let me give you a couple examples. What federal financial resources are available for small businesses and nonprofits that are struggling as a result of COVID-19? What loans are available to small businesses? What grants are available to small businesses? How do you apply for funding through EIDL and PPP programs, et cetera? So we have all those answered there. And I would like to thank many of the business leaders on this call right now for helping us work through some of those issues. We've had conversations with many of you in the last week to get these answers exactly right. On Monday, if you'll permit him to, Clint, what he wanted to say today is to talk about the companies that are more than 500 people. So there's two sides of this bill. One is the companies under 500 people, and there's sort of a special set of provisions for them and how to apply for loans and how to get grants, et cetera. And then the other is for larger businesses, say business with 2,000 people or beyond that. And to be honest, he's been spending most of the day learning about that because his assignment, speaking of Senator Romney, was to work on the small business and on the individual relief. And so he's getting smart on that today. He'll be even smarter Monday to be able to speak to that because some of our companies represented here that will apply to. So that's a resource. I'll also thank a couple of specific people just to give you an example of what's happened. I think of guys like Dave Elkington, who's been in touch with our office and been able to marry what's going on at the state level with what we need the FDA to do. So Dave's been in touch with our office today to help nudge the FDA on some things regarding tests in Utah. And I bring that up as an example, not to pat him on the back, but to show what a state and federal partnership is supposed to look like. And I could go on and on and on with a number of the companies and people that you all know, but know that we're here. If we haven't responded, just reach out again. It's been very overwhelming. This little walk in the woods has been nice at the end of a very long week. But we remain here. We're trying to talk to every one of you possible because I'll just give an example again, just because I think it's practical. we had another Utah business owner who went through the process today and noticed what he thought was perhaps an error in the SBA loan application program. Turns out it was. And so we were able to go back and work with the Small Business Administration to repair something from the website. And because he was able to flag it for us quickly, we got to them. So it's just extraordinary, echoing what Davis and what Ryan said. No other state has this organization. No other state has this. It is an envy of all these other offices that we're working with out here in DC.
Thanks so much, Matt.
That's romney.senate.gov/small biz help, because that's the big answers right there that you need right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. That's Matt Waldrop, Mitt Romney's chief of staff. Thank you so much, Matt. Enjoy the walk with your kids. And finally, we're going to end like we always end with our good friend, Mark Newman, CEO of Nomi Health, to give an update on the Mark chairs our Health Impact Committee here at Silicon Slopes and through the slopeserves.com community. Mark, take it away, my friend.
Okay, see my slides?
Yeah, we can see it. Great.
Perfect. All right, ending the week with PowerPoint, just like the way everyone intended it to be. So here we are, update number 6. We've had pluses, minuses, a lot going on. And I'm going to go through this today. Feel free to ask any questions you would like. So first off, volume keeps going up. Terrific. Utah, from a testing perspective, is moving. Positive tests are also going up. Keep in mind, of the 7,700 tests done, that is 1/40th of the Utah population. And compared to New York City, unfortunately, we are tracking, but we're trying to bend the curve. And everyone's efforts on this call in this community, the lieutenant governor, you name it, the entire staff has just been absolutely really trying to target this. And I would look at it and echo just every single person on every single presenter today. There's an enormous amount of change in life. If someone does have to come to your house, you feel a little jittery. If you are interacting, if you're going out, if you're doing this, if you're name it. But it's going to take a community to go solve this thing, and I really trust the efforts of them and their roles and opportunities of what they're presenting for us to be able to really tackle this. Okay, so remember our goal: peace of mind, get people back to work and school. Maybe not be Disneyland for a while, but let's just get back to life. And the keys for us to do it is test anytime, treatment that's available, and tracking to figure out where the hotspots are for where things need to be addressed. I'm here to tell you, Slope Serves and the Silicon Slopes community is driving, engaging, supporting, enabling, empowering, whatever word you want to call it, every single one of these core initiatives for the state. The governor's plan was laced with all of our efforts, not just on the healthcare side, but on the economic side, and also in partnership with the other fantastic organizations in the community, ADC Utah, Salt Lake Chamber, you name it. We're all getting tired as well going after this. In the last 2 weeks, and even since Wednesday, we've totally transformed the tech stack that the state is trying to roll out to be able to support the efforts. Domo, Josh, and his crack team of architects and data analysts have built out and are supporting an amazing dashboarding opportunity for them. The tracing technology around figuring out where the movement of infected individuals and you name it is going around, and where we need to be testing and where we need to be going after that is going to be Utah powered. PR around getting people out to test, getting on that board, multiple lab partners being set up. It's been absolutely crazy. Clint and I are both bombarded on a daily basis. I will forgive openly for not responding to everybody. The amount of leaning in that's happening around supporting these efforts is just nuts. What we're doing this week and next, testing is going. It's beta rollout, just like in product. Great test, validated tests, and getting people tested to go into motion. There are differing perspectives in Utah around testing. I'll be totally candid. It is a battle every single day right now around people thinking that we have plenty of testing, other people saying we don't have testing, a governor's plan that says we need 3x the testing. We are battling this out, and It's tiring. It is the hardest part of this entire initiative, trying to just move this forward. We're hoping to figure this out. We've had state and federal engagement around every opportunity to do it. I don't think our goal changes until anyone in Utah can get a test when they need to feel confident to be able to go back to work and back to school. We don't have enough testing. And so we're going to keep driving that forward and keeping up the fight with Slopes and the entire community. We're rolling out to support the efforts of the state, the dashboard, the analytics, the tracing tools, and the PR campaigns behind that. We have some fantastic people and fantastic technology and credibility behind that. And I've seen the state move mountains in 24 hours that I never imagined could happen in state or federal government. And that is not only appreciated, but inspiring. And so much of this effort, so much of this work, technology, services, you name it, they're just moving. And Chris Cox, Nate Checketts, Spencer Cox, you name it, across the state, there are people moving and doing amazing work. Chris Hughes is moving mountains that never was there before. Outside of our community, or inside of our community, excuse me, outside of the state, I just want to highlight a number of companies. I'm calling it the magic, and it's coming from different places, and there's so many others that I can't even, that I haven't been able to list here today, and I'm going to try to make sure that we recognize. Locally, Alpha ProTech and ATL, massive producers of PPE that will keep the state not fully equipped, but more equipped than we've ever been. They've opened up their supply chains. They've gotten to work. They had creativity. Clint, and I'm totally forgetting, it was at Utah Manufacturers Association, excuse me, that was reaching out with a number of their members, opening up and doing the exact same thing. Josh and the team at Domo jumping in on data, Safe Lane Health developing assessments, marrying that with horticulture survey data. Innovate Massage offering up their event management software to be able to run that down to be picking up testing times and locations. Mount Star Healthcare jumping in for lab testing. Bio Utah Women's Tech Council. Kelvin Cullimore has done more for this state in this effort, in this war, than so many of his peers and other organizations. So it's happening on a corporate level, but I want to bring this home to an individual level as well. We're talking about a lot around keeping restaurants in business, keeping people served, and that's for sure. Tonight, don't cook, order something. But I want you to also, this weekend, when you're with your families and you're thinking about, traditionally going out and what can you do to help? What can you do to serve? How can you help people around you? We heard Ryan talking about primary children dropping meals off to first responders, you name it. The helpers need help. They need stuff. The 4th Street Clinic, for instance, needed soap. Like something as basic and as rudimentary as that we just take for granted. So I'm asking any organization that wants to set up an Amazon wish list. That doesn't mean we can buy it on Amazon. Their inventories are low, but we can find it different places, put it into Slope Serves so that we can understand what your needs are. We just bought it, got it shipped to them, 6 gallons of it. Utah County needed masks. Food Bank needed money. Senior centers, care homes, they're out of stuff, PPE and gowns and you name it. Look around this. Look around the community, look around the places we drive past every day. Think about the helpers and figure out a way to help them. And I'd really implore everyone on this call with your families this weekend, think about this as a virtual service opportunity. Pick your place, buy them something they need now. Everyone needs something, and they don't need, frankly, $100,000. They need $100,000 of the stuff they need. So keep calm and carry on. We hope to have really exciting updates next week around mass test volume in more locations that hasn't been available up to this point. We're going to fight the fight to make sure that can happen. And if there's one thing that I believe traditional healthcare, traditional kind of state formats, you name it, haven't ever experienced, it's the brute force of the private sector when we're really trying to go after something. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. I want to thank everyone on this call, everyone who has participated in the Silicon Slopes community. I cannot tell you how amazing this community has been, the way we've rallied, the way Utah is rallying. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together like we always do here in Utah. I'm so thankful for the leadership of Governor Herbert, Speaker Wilson, Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox, President Stuart Adams, all the CEOs like Mark and Jeremy and Josh James and Ryan Smith and Aaron Sconnard and Corrine Clark, and so many folks that I could just go on and on and on, and thanking all of you for everything you've done. In particular, I want to thank Davis Smith and Cotopaxi. Please go to slopeserves.com. Please buy one of these t-shirts. All proceeds from this t-shirt go directly to helping people in Utah who are battling COVID-19 and all of the effects of it, the economic effects, the medical effects, the health effects, everything in between. So go to slopeserves.com. As mentioned at the beginning of this call, we do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. Our next one will be Monday at 4 p.m. Everybody have a great weekend. Look for ways to serve, look for helpers, look for ways to help the helpers. And we will see you Monday at 4 p.m. for an agenda and all the updates, and to get invited to our Slack channel, go to slopeserves.com. Have a great weekend.